Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 47th episode of the Triboro Podcast. I'm your host, always, Justin Alonso, joined by that Nick guy on the other side. How are you
That's
doing, Nick
me.
guy?
I'm doing quite alright. Lots of news over the past few days. Lot going on.
Yeah,
Lot to cover,
baseball.
including this week.
I just rolled out of bed, so I'm tired and don't like baseball, but Yankees are good at baseball, so I like baseball and words
Exactly.
and things and bing.
Bing and bong.
Bing and bong. Yeah, we haven't heard from us for a while because it's kind of been like a in-between thing.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, the trade deadline, but the game's... So,
Right.
yes. But we'll
But we're
back to
back.
normal
That's okay.
after this, yes. Yeah, we'll just like mention it. Subway Series happened. Mets butt fucked the Yankees. That's literally
Yes.
it. That just
Big
happened.
Diekman struck out Aaron Judge looking,
and
and
then
got
DFA'd.
DFA'd.
The Yankees lost their leadoff hitter and cleanup hitter from that game. Yeah.
It was only like a week ago. I think it's a week ago to the day, and yet so much has changed already.
It's because it's baseball. Like,
Yeah.
baseball feels like there's like 4 or 5 seasons within a season.
Yes.
Like,
Definitely.
it just... Like, for
Like,
the
you look at-
Yankees, you had
yeah.
the first month where Judge played horrible. Then you had Judge playing great before the team sucked. Then you had Judge playing great before the All-Star break, when up until the Mets series when the team sucked. And then you had the Jazz era.
Yeah.
Like,
The Jazz there.
The Jazz era. Sorry, the Mark Leiter Jr. era.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got anything else before we hop right into the Bronx?
Mets on the Yankees, 4-0 this season. Fuck you. All right, let's
We're
go.
going to the Bronx.
Now entering the Bronx.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back into the Bronx. What are you looking at me like that for?
Because you scared me.
I yawned. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I accept your apology.
I'm not sorry. What? Yeah, but over the only series that mattered, the Yankees won 5-1. Woo, woo, woo.
And 0-4
Nope.
in the entire season.
Nope. They had a 5-1 road trip where they scored maybe 17 runs a game. About that. But before we get into anything, we're not gonna have an injury update because we got weird stuff going on because of trade deadline. So, for the roster moves, I'm gonna split it up into 2 things: your non-trade deadline part and your trade deadline part. For the non-trade deadline part, they DFA'd J.D. Davis and Jahmai Jones. Like I said, their leadoff hitter and cleanup hitter against the Mets, they DFA'd. They released Jeter Downs, now with the, I'm going to butcher this, Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. They called up Will Warren because Garrett Cole having general body fatigue. Then it came out he wasn't recovering as well between starts. Then it came out that he had a stomach bug.
It happens when you face the Mets. It's okay.
He was facing the Phillies, though.
His last start was against the Mets.
I don't care. But Will Warren, he went 5 1/3, 4 hits, 400 runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. I think that's pretty good, all things considered. Where Cole got scratched literally a couple hours before the game, and Will Warren's in AAA, never been called up for, and they just call him and I'm like, "Hey, you're up now, buddy." And he's like, "What?"
Right. Oaxaca.
In one of probably the more hostile environments, I would definitely say, to play in.
For sure.
And even then, all the runs he gave up were in the second inning. I think he had 1 in the first, but no runs came after the second inning. So he had 3 in the third, no runs allowed. And for a young pitcher, that's impressive, in my opinion.
It's like it was a very successful debut, I would say, especially against I know the Phillies are kind of hitting their first struggle. It seems like, but still, you have so many guys up and down that lineup that can hurt you at any point.
They had
Like,
what four All-Star hitters, and that's with Real Muto being hurt for most of the year, so I don't think he made it.
right. Yeah, no.
So you have a bunch of All-Stars up and down that lineup.
Right. Right. And only giving up 4 runs, very successful. I think he looked really good.
Yeah. Speaking of guys that look really good, Giancarlo Stanton was activated off the 10-day IL, so he went 2 for 4 on Wednesday's game. I want you to guess all 4 outs or all 4 balls were put in play. Do you know the answer to this?
I don't know the exact answer, but I know it's
So the lowest exit velo he had was 110.1. 110.1, 113.4, 114.5, 120.
how does a human being hit a small spherical object 120 miles an hour?
With a cylindrical bat. Don't ask me. No, but if he wants to hit baseball, that's good. Very,
Yeah.
very muy bueno.
Yes.
Then, moving on to the trade deadline recap, I'm going to go in backwards order of importance. So, Caleb Ferguson was traded to the Astros for Kelly Austin, who was just A-ball lottery ticket reliever and international pool money. I will say international pool money isn't nothing, because Cashman loves the international pool money, and he gets a lot of guys that way. Like, that's how he got Severino, that's how he got Peraza, Dominguez, Loizaga, blanking on guys' names now. Heel, like, pretty much all the international guys that they sign is through that money, so that isn't nothing.
No, for sure.
Then, Enyel De Los Santos and Thomas Balboni Jr. for Brandon Lockridge. Brandon Lockridge was a non-ranked prospect. De Los Santos is okay, nothing special, but the things that I liked is that he averaged 95.5 miles on his fastball, and he has really good whiff and strikeout rates. His whiff percentage is 92nd percentile, strikeout is 85th percentile. Everything else
there's
is kind of
stuff
like...
to work with.
Yeah,
I
so
feel like he's kind of a project.
Yeah. Because the fastball velo, the whiff, and K are all really good, but then you have 1% barrel rate, 3rd percentile hard hit percentage.
Right. Yeah.
So there are definitely some big issues there, but some things that Matt Blake can mold. And then Thomas Balboni Jr.'s prospect they got is like a throw-in. Mark Leiter Jr. Was traded for Benjamin Cowles and Jack Neely. Cowles was 30th ranked prospect. Neely was 20th ranked prospect. I was kind of surprised by Neely getting traded, because I saw a lot of buzz about him, like getting called up a while ago, and I think I talked on the podcast how like crazy his numbers were.
I think so. Yeah.
But I'm also very much so in on the Mark Leiter trade, because first off, he has 2.5 years of control. You look at his Savant page, the only thing that he doesn't do well in is fastball velo, which kind of shocked me. But 96th percentile expected ERA, 94th expected batting average, 85th average exit velo, 92nd chase, 98 whiff, 98 strikeout percentage, 84th percentile ground ball rate, 80th percentile hard hit rate. So everything is really damn good. Yeah. Which I think that he's a very good reliever, and you even saw last week, or in the Phillies game, I think it was game 2, where they had that crazy fucking 17-inning game, even though it was only 12 innings, but it felt like 17. And he pitched well. Like, he had some unlucky things, but he pitched around it, didn't fold, and I forget, there's so many funny quotes that are coming out about him. Or, like, people will ask anonymous scouts, like, oh, what's your opinion on him? And people will just say, he has the biggest balls I've ever seen. I'm not kidding. I've seen tweets that, like, of quotes of scouts saying that.
I love that. That's all you need to know about him, man.
Yeah, so he brings fire, intensity, everything that you'd want there. And he's also related to Yankee legends Al Leiter and Mark Leiter Sr. And more importantly, he is Anthony Volpe's high school teammate's cousin.
Wow. That really brings it full circle, doesn't
It
it?
does, yeah. For those that don't
Wow.
know, Mark Leiter Jr. is cousins with Jack Leiter, who is a prospect for the Rangers, and he was high school teammates with Anthony Volpe. And he also went to Toms River High School. Do you know who else went to Toms River High School?
Tom's River High School. Who?
Todd Frazier.
Oh my gosh, really? The guy from New Jersey?
No one would know that. Oh my
Oh my
god.
god.
It's not like we're told this every 5 seconds, even when he has
That
nothing to do
is
with it.
new information.
New
I have never
information
heard
always.
those words string together in my life.
Yeah. You know that Todd Frazier's from Jersey?
Really?
Yeah.
Last time I heard he was from Jersey.
I did not know he was from Jersey, even though I just said it.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Crazy how things work.
No, I think there may be a conversation for him to at least be in a committee for a closer role, though.
Hmm.
I'm not sure they go full blown into it, but I think there's
Yeah.
definitely a conversation for it.
I think it is more than... I don't know where I was going to go with that, but basically what I was getting to is you have to have a decision, I think.
Yeah.
As a very big Clay Holmes fan, you need to give him a break from the...
Yeah. For example, Holmes leads league in blown saves. And I'm pretty sure he's blown 6 out of his last 9 saves.
Hmm.
So like a heavy amount of his last saves. And I don't know if I found the numbers. No, I didn't. But he has like a 6 ERA since like May.
Mm.
Something like not good at all.
Yeah.
But then getting into the last trade deadline guy, let me just... There we go. I went a little... Doop. But the last trade deadline piece they got was Jazz Chisholm Jr. for Augustin Ramirez, Jared Serna, Abraham Ramirez. Augustin Ramirez was 4th ranked in the Yankee system. Jared Serna was 8th. Abraham Ramirez was not ranked. I think that I could be alone when I say this. I think it's a good deal for both sides. Just because everything if you look at it value-wise, I think the Yankees got more value. But Ramirez is a very young catcher that is an absurd hitter. And his defense is, solid. So I think that's a guy right there that he has a lot of upside for the Marlins. Same thing with Cerna. But both of them were outside the top 15 before the year. So they're both
Right,
just
yeah.
fast risers that you have every year. So I don't hate giving it up. And I'm sure the Marlins don't hate the package they got back.
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, first of all, the Marlins did very well with all their trades.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like you mentioned, both of those guys, or more so Ramirez, I think, didn't really have a spot in the future because of, Austin Wells. I think, if I remember correctly, I don't think they're completely throwing away Rice's ability to catch.
They're not.
I think right. So they still have him there, and I don't know what Trevino's contract is looking like, but you got those, call it 2.5 guys, because I don't know really realistically how much Rice is going to catch, but you're kind of set for the near future. So giving up a guy like that doesn't really hurt all that much.
And to your point, Trevino has one more year after this year.
All right. So.
But yeah, they also had, I think, 7 catchers on the 40-man roster going into the year.
I remember that, yeah.
So, and you look at all the guys they got rid of. So right now they have 3 in Rice, Trevino, and Wells. They got rid of Ramirez, Torrens, Rortved, and I forget who the other one was. But they had depth at catcher. So
Yeah.
I really don't. It's not that big of a loss. I think it's a much more gain for the Marlins than it is for a loss for the Yankees.
Definitely.
But going into Jazz himself, for those that don't know, kind of what he brings to the table is speed, versatility, swag in 2.5 years of control. The only thing that was really concerning about me, or two things that kind of concerned me before the Yankees traded for him, was one, the injuries. Because he's only played more than 100 games twice in his career. He did 124 in 2021. He has 104 this year. But also, I was very concerned what they would have to give up. Because I thought you would have to give up, like, Spencer Jones to get him. Just the way the market was. So them being able to get with him with that package is definitely worth it. And that's before I saw how he did. So I'm not even going to get into the power right now. But there was a play, I want to say it was Game 3 in Fenway. May have been Game 2. Game 2 in Fenway. Where he ran out an infield single. Got to second. He, on the, fielder's choice, stole third because no one was covering the bag. It was just a complete heads-up base running play and then scored on a sac fly. That's the type of thing where it's just manufacturing runs.
Yeah.
And what is your opinion on them batting him like 5-6?
Shocked, I think, is the appropriate word. I honestly thought, and I think a lot of people thought, that he would instantly slide into that leadoff role. But it's working. So what do I know?
Oh.
But I think you guys have had so much trouble at leadoff. I know, is Verdugo doing like a little better?
He has been better. Since the All-Star break,
so,
and Blade were both of them better.
So at least you have that going for you, but we always thought Volpe was going to be that guy, but Jazz absolutely can be that guy. He can be that leadoff guy. But at the same time, the way he's hitting, I don't mind him where he is now.
My only thing with putting him leadoff, because I was a big believer, like, oh, they're going to slot him in a leadoff, whatever. The only thing I have to say about that is, what if what happened to Volpe happens to him, where it kind of just nerfs his ability to run, because he doesn't want to make an out in front of Judge and Soto? That's the only kind of counterpoint I would have. And that's always something you would just have to see. Like, you can't just say, like, now it's going to happen that way, one way or the other. But I would definitely want to see how his running ability would be impacted by being in front of those guys.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's different because you have guys like Judge and Soto behind him. But just watching him on the Marlins, I feel like he was never really scared to run. He was kind of, like, very free with it. But again, that's with, Brian De La Cruz batting. Josh Bell. It's different when you have Judge and Soto.
Yeah. But then his power shocked me. And not in a way of how, like, oh, he hits the ball far or whatever. Just his raw power.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's one of those guys that he's small. Junior, I want to say he's, oh my god, if I could stop hitting my mic. He's 5'11", and I'm pretty sure he's like 165.
Right. Yeah, he's
180.
Not a big guy.
So he's 5'11", 180. So, like, he's not a big guy, but just he's one of those guys that just has such a good swing that he has a lot of power because of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And you also, a lot of the things that when the Yankees traded for him was he had 1,000 OPS with runners in scoring position. You saw that. In Game 2 against the Phillies, he had, well, first off, let's say Game 1 he had 2 home runs. The second home run was off a position player with Aaron Judge's bat. And then in Game 2, the Yankees were down 4-1. He hits a solo shot to make it 4-2 game. Then later, I want to say in the 7th or 8th inning, he hits a 3-run home run, lefty off of Strom, and gives the Yankees the lead. That was, I had just gotten off work. I was waiting in line at an ice cream place with one of my coworkers, and we had the game streaming on our phone. That was like the one at bat we saw. Our jaws just dropped.
Yeah, that was impressive. Because that's been my biggest thing of Jazz. That's why I never really bought into the hype. I thought he was more of a glorified platoon player, to put it nicely. But that lefty swing, that was different. I feel like I don't think I've seen that from Jazz when the Mets played him. Like every time the Mets brought in a lefty to face Jazz, I feel like more than half the time they got out. But him to put a swing like that on a very good pitcher in Matt Strom, that was super impressive.
No. And I think a lot of it is he just had nothing to play for in Miami. Like, Miami just sucked. There was nothing going on. So getting out of there and actually going to a place where you can win, a lot of people say that, like, this is the type of guy he is. Like, they called up Derek Jeter saying, hey, what's the scouting report on him? Because Derek Jeter, when he was the GM with the Marlins, he traded for Jazz, and he said, like, this guy's legit. Like, he will thrive in New York.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen him play at the stadium. I'm so excited to see what his roll call celebration will be. But, yeah. And that's not even including him playing third base, which he has looked very smooth at third. It's a 2-game sample size, granted, but he looks very smooth at third base.
Yeah, and I was kind of also surprised they just threw him into the fire like that. Because he's never played third base in his career.
Majors or minors.
Right. And I'm not sure how many reps he's gotten. Like, maybe if the Marlins, maybe they've tried him out. I really don't think so. But, yeah, they kind of just threw him in there. And so far, he looks good. He looks solid.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be a liability there.
He literally just got third base reps. Like, the first reps he got with the Yankees were the day he was playing.
Yeah.
And he made some nice plays. He did there were a lot of, like, double plays that he turned, a lot of, not necessarily heads-up plays, but plays you expect from a third baseman. Like, a guy that actually, like, played third base.
The one that comes to mind, he didn't get an out of it, but I forgot who was hitting, but it was, like, a sharp line drive that he just got the glove on that would have probably saved the double at least.
Yes.
But he kept on the infield. That's the one play that stays in my mind, and I think that's like a really good, kind of, I guess, look
measuring
into
stick.
What he possibly could be. Yeah, like a measuring stick. Like, that was really impressive.
Yeah. Did you have anything else on Jazz that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, one last thing, like you mentioned, like what he brings to the table with like his swag and his charisma and all that. It looks like he's playing differently. Like, from watching him on the Marlins, the vibe feels different. Like you mentioned, like the Marlins, besides really last year, they haven't really been good. They squeaked into the playoffs last year, but they really didn't go anywhere. On the Yankees, I feel like he's a lot more maybe loose. Like, he doesn't need to be the guy in the Yankees.
Yeah.
With the Marlins, he had to, because you had nothing else. But he doesn't need to be that guy on the Yankees. So I think him being able to kind of be the player who he is and just relax and play the game, I think that's going to really be huge.
Yeah. I think another thing, too, is that, like, one of the first things in the dugout that you saw happen was him and Judge sitting on the railing talking.
Right.
And him using Judge's bat and just very, very fun.
Yeah, for sure.
The only issue, literally the only nitpick I had was the first game he played at Fenway. Even then, though, he got at stadium at 5:41 for a 7 o'clock game. And there was a ball just hit off the monster that took a weird turn. He ended up playing it wrong. I think it was Devers got a triple out of it. Right. But even then, like, they were talking on the broadcast, like, one thing they do is if you play at Fenway and you're the away team, outfielders will always take balls off the monster just to get used to it. He didn't have that chance. So I'm not going to really knock him for that. Just, that was, like, really the only nitpick that I had.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just going to go into a bunch of individual players. So I'm getting into Glaber. So since he got benched, which was about a month ago, a month and a week, call it a month and change, in 101 plate appearances, he's batting .295 with a .360 on base, .455 slugging for a .131 WRC+. I think that them not trading for a second baseman was mostly due to that. What's your opinion on them kind of riding it out with Glaber?
I think it's the right move. I honestly, I guess, from the outside looking in, I thought that the Yankees trade deadline was a little underwhelming
Mm.
because really it was really Leiter and Jazz. That was really it.
Mm.
But I think it was the right move to stick with Glaber. I always thought that if you had to choose one, because the Yankees had a lot of spaces to fill on that roster, it had to be third base, because the combination of DJ and Cabrera and whoever else you want to throw in at third base just wasn't working, no matter how much you give a guy playing time, no matter even if DJ hits another grand slam, who knows if he's going to do anything past that. But being able to kind of give Glaber that runway, I think, was just the right way to go about things. Because yeah, his underlying metrics don't look great, but at one point you just got to say, you got to look at the back of the baseball card. He's going to be at least some form of league average, in the second half. So I don't mind it. I think it was the right move.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think that with them not... Because a lot of my theory on what they were going to do is they were going to trade for a starter, flip Nestor, then use the prospects they flipped Nestor for a second baseman. Obviously, they didn't do that. They had an agreement with Jack Flaherty, but then there were reports that said that they got scared off because of medicals. Then Cashman said it was nothing to do with medicals. Is that... Could Cashman have said it was medicals? Like, legally speaking, could he have said it was medicals?
I don't know.
Because I know the Tigers GM, they asked him if there was anything wrong with the medicals, and he said that he couldn't say.
I'm sure there's probably something,
Yeah.
like, coming straight from a guy in those negotiations. I think there was probably something that he can't mention. But I feel like he was kind of saying it through his teeth a little, like, oh, we couldn't match up the value, and I might be reading into it a little too much. But like, if you can't match up the value, then either you don't value the player you're trading for as much, which could come from kind of sketchy medicals, or the Tigers just don't like what you're giving up. But like, I kind of see it both ways. But yeah, there's probably something like in the CBA or some agreement that you can't specifically speak on whatever.
Yeah. Words, things. The only kind of pitcher I want to talk about was Carlos Rodon. So in his last start, before his last start, he averaged 95 miles an hour on his fastball. Last start, he was averaging 96 and a half, and he hit 99 a couple of times. One thing that really impressed me is he pitched backwards a lot, and that really worked. He had one inning that wasn't good, where he gave up 2 solo shots back to back, and then the next batter was Devers, where he had like that weird triple. But then he got out of it. So,
Right.
And that was with no outs too. Runner on third, no outs. He ended up getting out of that. I've been more and more impressed the more we see him kind of like changing up his repertoire. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have all the stats to kind of back it up, Like, it's not even just like, oh, the team has things that let him know that this is a better way to pitch, but, the fan base, Baseball Savant has the information that literally everyone can point to and be like, hey, your fastball isn't what it used to be. You got to, take it back a little. And yet, he's still kind of, like, wishy-washy on it, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Then getting into Aaron Judge, I did something for fun. So he's on an 11-game on base streak. It's probably longer. I only did to the All-Star break because it was something funny I saw. So going backwards, this is how many times he's been on base in 11 games. 3, 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 2, 6, 3, 2, 5. He was on base 3 or more times, 6 out of 11 games.
It's insane.
That's just... Over that span, he has a 395 average, 552 on base, 767 slugging for a 262 WRC plus.
I got none.
Everyone talks about Barry Bonds' like insane run from 01 to 2004. Aaron, and like how those are the 4 best offensive seasons of all time. Aaron Judge's WRC plus this year is better than I think it was the 03 year.
Interesting.
And keep in mind, Aaron Judge missed a month pretty much.
Right. Yeah.
It's absurd. He is at 99 RBIs, which I said the over for the RBIs was an absolute lock, and I got clowned.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
You did.
I did say that.
You did. This was true.
Because I said that Soto in front of him, he would have so many RBI opportunities. So, I'm just saying. In those 11 games, he has 14. So, I'm just saying. And even then, 24.1% walk percentage, 22.4 strikeout percentage. So, walking more than he's striking out. Yeah.
Insane.
If this lineup they traded for Jazz and then like a lot of guys like Verdugo and Glaber were like, oh shit, our jobs, gotta play well.
Oh no.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, no, especially Verdugo, because if Dominguez, he's back in AAA like fully now, I believe. So if Verdugo doesn't pick it up, there's nothing stopping them from calling up Dominguez.
I feel bad for Grisham, personally. Because when Stanton went down, Grisham got a lot more playing time, and Grisham played significantly better. But now he just doesn't have the playing time, and I'm worried that he's just going to revert to what he was earlier in the year. So, I do feel a little bad for him.
You're probably right. I don't think he's going to be as bad as he was earlier in the year, and he's certainly not as good as he's been when playing more. But, he's there to be a fourth outfielder. And I think he kind of understands that role. And as long as he can bring competitive at-bats to a pinch-hitting appearance or, a start on the 10th day of a 12-day road trip or whatever, I think it'll be fine.
I thought they should have traded him just because I feel like that's where his value would have been the highest. Just because, how hot he was playing, still have another year of control. Yeah. But not in a way of trading them in the sense of, oh, get him out of here. Just in a sense of, I think that's just a value thing.
Yeah. Especially in the market. Who knows?
Yeah.
I would have at least gotten something decent.
Yeah. Then moving on to pick a number 1 or 2.
2.
2. Okay. So, Anthony Volpe since the All-Star break. He is hitting .333 with a .346 on base, .569 slugging for 158 WRC plus. He has 3 home runs in that time, 3 doubles, and keep in mind the big thing was he had 6 home runs before the All-Star break. He has 3 since then, so the power's coming back. He's starting to steal a lot more. He has 4 stolen bases, but I think that number is heavily deflated because there were so many times where he had a base stolen easily, but then the guy fell back to pitch.
Right.
So I'm very excited for the hot streak of Anthony Volpe. That I have a feeling this one's going to continue more because I think he's a lot more comfortable kind of later in that lineup because he has more. I almost want the Yankees to have 2 lineups within one lineup. As weird as that sounds, where the top half is very new age baseball, hit ball far, hit out of the just hit out of the park, all that. But then kind of the bottom half is more small ballish because I feel like they play more small ballish.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
So if that's if you have guys like Jazz, Volpe down at the bottom of the lineup, then and even if Oswaldo or DJ's starting whichever of the 2, I feel like that's a perfect small ballish lineup.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's ever a bad thing to kind of be because if your bottom half of the lineup can tack on a run or 2 when you have 2 MVP, the first MVP candidate and the third MVP candidate, that's incredible.
Yeah, and plus it gives you more leeway to hide guys like DJ and or Cabrera at the bottom of that lineup because
Yeah.
you just need them to get on base almost. Like that's really it. Like just dink a single or like somehow run into a double. But that's really kind of all you can ask for at the bottom of that lineup. So if they can kind of, fit that mold, I think it will do a lot for just the bottom of the order and those
Yeah.
players down there.
Because it also takes pressure off Judge and Soto that they don't have
Right.
to score every single run, which is
Exactly.
what the Yankees had. And, man, I just want Dominguez back. But there's two more guys I want to talk about. I'm saving the best for last, so I'm just going to talk about Ben Rice right now. His overall numbers aren't good, but you look kind of like under the hood at Baseball Savant. His numbers are great on Savant. He's not qualified, so like they don't have the actual percentile, but he's about 95th percentile in expected weighted on base. He is probably like 95th to 97th percentile in expected slugging, 100th percentile or 99th percentile in barrel rate with a 20.5 barrel rate, which is just absurd. That's crazy. 95th percentile launch angle sweet spot, 90th percentile in chase rate, probably about 80th percentile in walking. So, he also grades as above average framer because he has 0 framed runs, and that's above average.
Amazing.
No, but I think that he deserves runway. And I kind of like that they didn't trade for a first baseman because of that. Because I think that you get a cheap, controllable guy like this, that you let him have time to kind of get more acclimated. I think he will start hitting again because he's been roasting the ball every time he's up. But it'll just be like a hard out or just something like that. So I'm still all in on Ben Rice.
So am I. I think it was another good move to just kind of let Rice kind of have first base per se. Like I think a lot of people I saw talking about maybe getting him like a platoon partner, a righty, but like at the same time,
I want him hitting off lefties.
Right. I don't think it's a bad idea to have him hit off lefties and play a majority of the time because he can be your future and he probably should be, so giving him that leeway because you have if everything falls right, you have a pretty decent lineup where you can have a guy that needs to work through things in the middle of that lineup because like you said, a lot of the underlying metrics look solid. So it all points to, it's bound to...
Or, like, getting luckier.
Yeah.
And we saw that with the next guy I'm going to get into, Austin Wells, where all of his underlying numbers were great. He just needed the right breaks to happen. Those breaks started happening, and I can't remember if we talked about it on the podcast, but I remember telling you that Austin Wells has a decent shot to win Rookie of the Year before the season started. And you were kind of like,
Yeah. I just never thought they would give him the playing time.
I don't see on the track that he's on right now how he doesn't win it. With how he's playing right now.
Yeah.
And
also the fact that I can't think of any other rookies.
Luis Heel.
You're right.
That's really about it.
Yeah. Jordan Westburg maybe, but he just fractured his hand, so...
Yeah. In his last 200 plate appearances, going back to April 24th, he has a 134 WRC+. He has the 4th best WAR for a catcher. I'm going to go over the plate appearances by these catchers and their WAR. Patrick Bailey is number 1 with 3.5 WAR, 287 plate appearances. Will Smith, 2.6 WAR with 362 plate appearances. Cal Riley, 2.6 with 355 plate appearances. Austin Wells, 2.4, 236. So outside of Patrick Bailey, who's just absurd, he has significantly less plate appearances with about the same WAR. And on top of that, I forget where, like the last month or two, he leads catchers in average, on base, OPS, WAR, literally everything. He leads catchers in over the last month or two.
Yeah.
So I I've always been big on the Austin Wells bandwagon. The only time that I was kind of a little low is when he fractured a rib last year in spring training, because I was
Right.
worried
Oh yeah.
that because he was 24, and I thought he had a good shot to make the opening day roster, but not making the opening day roster, getting hurt in spring training, being a little older for a prospect, that kind of made me nervous. But everything I've seen from him, he is a legitimate major league catcher, and I don't see how he doesn't win Rookie of the Year right now. The way if they bring back Trevino and they make Austin Wells the primary catcher, I don't see how he doesn't win it.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
That's all I have for the Yankees. Unless you had anything else you wanted to say.
No, I think Jazz is going to be a good addition. I have a good feeling about Jazz. Probably not as much as I thought I would feel about
Same
him,
here.
but after again, I will call it underwhelming trade deadline. Both him and Leiter are gonna kind of be put under the spotlight a little bit, because if they struggle, then obviously everyone's gonna point to Cashman not doing more.
Yeah.
But I like the moves they made. They probably should have done more, but with the market, I completely understand why they probably didn't. But ride the hot wave and see where things go.
I would probably give them a B minus, a B on the trade deadline.
That's fair.
I never realized how much energy Jazz brought. The Yankees are 5-0 in the Jazz era. There were multiple games where they were like losing, then they came back, then they gave up the lead, whatever, and they ended up winning those games where they wouldn't have done that earlier in the year. So just seeing that fight was very impressive.
Yeah, definitely. I will agree there.
And then if you want to take us away.
But if you got nothing else, then we will go on to Queens, where there is a lot more to cover in this trade deadline. We will see you in Queens.
Choo-choo.
Now entering Queens.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Queens, where a lot can change in a week. The Mets have finished up their homestand against the Braves and Twins, going, if I could do my math correctly, 4-3. 2 wins against the Braves, 2 wins against the Twins, a split and a series win. But more importantly, the trade deadline has passed. The Mets made a lot of moves, probably not as flashy as a lot of people would have liked, but kind of what I expected. We'll get into that, but first and foremost, your injury report brought to you by Triboro MD. Sean Reed-Foley is expected to start a rehab assignment, or I believe he already started it, so he should be back probably by the end or middle of next week, depending how things go. Starling Marte is expected to start a rehab assignment this week. He's been out since June, I believe, with a knee discomfort issue. He's alive, thank God. But Marte's bat has been definitely missed in the lineup. His defense, not so much. But a acquisition is going to make playing time an interesting dynamic once he's back. And then back to the bad news, I suppose. Daniel Nunez has a strained forearm, so he has been placed on the IL earlier this week. Carlos Mendoza and the rest of the Mets staff didn't seem too concerned with the long-term harm, I guess, of this injury. So hopefully, it doesn't sound like he's going to miss minimum time. Probably be a little more than that. He still hasn't thrown, to my knowledge, up until this point. But it shouldn't be long-term. Obviously, Nunez has been a breakout star for the Mets bullpen, and he will definitely be missed up until his return. And then to the even worse news, can't believe this was only a week ago. It feels like it was so long ago already. Christian Scott was placed on the 15-day IL with a sprained UCL Thankfully, all MRIs and all the tests, it was only a strain. Uh, don't believe there was a tear of any kind. So the Mets are going to go kind of the rehab route. I think similar to Cole. Cole had a sprained UCL, right? Is that what the injury was? No? I forget what it was.
It may have been. I don't think so.
Yeah, but regardless, he's going to go the rehab route. Surgery, as of right now, hopefully he can avoid it. But obviously, just a huge blow to rotation depth, at least.
Elbow nerve inflammation for
I was
Cole.
elbow. Okay, I knew it was something with the elbow.
Pitcher with an elbow shocker.
Right. So obviously that just absolutely stinks for Scott. I know he hasn't probably been as, you know, performance-wise as good as people expected him to be, but he was still really solid. He was still giving you good innings. But just sucks to see. So hopefully this isn't a long-term injury. Uh, he's going to rehab. They're aiming to get him back at one point this year, but we'll see how realistic that is. So I know they had a injury scare with him last year with his elbow, but it's kind of a little worrisome. Back-to-back years with problems with the elbow. Um, I know a lot of people are kind of like, just give him the surgery already. Like, don't even bother trying to rehab him. But the way Scott himself is looking at it, and I'm sure the way a lot of people are looking at it, is if he gets the surgery now, or if he gets the surgery and call it January, if needed, he's missing 2025 regardless. So it really doesn't matter when, unless it's like in the middle of 2025. But if it's within these couple, last months of 24, first month or two in 25, the result's going to be the same. So I don't mind what they're doing. Hopefully, surgery can just be avoided entirely, but just a big blow to rotation depth. And an even worse blow to rotation depth. Kodai Senga made his debut on Friday against the Braves. He looked fantastic. I was lucky enough to go to the game. It was electric. Everyone was having a great time. And then he ran off of the pitcher's mound to go just get out of the way of a pop-up, like right around the mound. And he sprained, no, it was strained his right calf. After the test revealed it is a high-grade strain, so that effectively ended his regular season for the most part. This one still stings. This one still hurts. It sucks for Senga too, because just how much he was going through to rehab and get back just to make, pitch 5+ innings and not make another start. It just absolutely brutal, and just sucks to see. Obviously, it makes the rotation depth that much thinner. You had, like I said, a lot can change in a week. Mets went into the trade deadline probably expecting, a bat, maybe a few bullpen arms, because they were probably comfortable with what they had in the rotation. But then you lose Scott, you lose Senga, and now Tyler McGill is a part of your rotation. And without Senga, I'll admit it, that this rotation isn't scary. Um, it's good in 162 and that marathon, but when it comes to playoffs, if the Mets continue to hold a spot in it, I don't know. The rotation doesn't really do it for me. Severino has been solid, but he's not what he used to be. He's not the big strikeout pitcher. Um,
Which is
who's your
so
game
weird
two?
for me. It's so weird for me that he just
I'm sure, yeah.
stopped striking guys out.
Yeah. A lot more ground balls, a lot more soft contact. Which, that's fine, but at the same time, when it comes to playoffs, you're looking for the high strikeout guys. You're looking for the competitors to kind of raise their game a little bit and really hone into the strikeouts and get guys out without, you know, about putting the ball in play, and the Mets just don't have a lot of that. And I say that now after Mania comes off a 7 inning, 11 strikeout game, but you figure Severino, if the Mets make the playoffs, would be your game one starter, but game two, who are you starting? Mania, maybe? Jose Quintana?
Grimace,
Exactly. It's definitely tough.
Salicata.
Absolutely. But it's definitely tough. Losing these two guys, Scott and Senga, really threw a wrench into things. And it happens. Injuries happen, and thankfully it happened before the trade deadline, so they could address it. Probably not as much as people would have liked, but they did. But regardless, Christian Scott's out for a while. Who knows if he's going to make it back by regular season's end. Senga, regular season's over. If all goes well, if the Mets do make the playoffs, maybe he could return for that. But as of right now, who knows? But the point that we've been talking about for call it a month, 2 months now is Senga's opt-out, which looks all but forgotten about. Just as a reminder, he had to pitch 400 innings in the first 3 years of his contract. I forget how much he pitched
He said like
last
180
year.
total.
Something like that. It was like high
170,
170s.
180. But the TLDR, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so he had to pitch 400 innings. He pitched 5 1/3 this year. He pitched 166 last year. So he's at 171, call it. Like 172, round up a little bit. He would need to throw a lot of innings, which is very unlikely. Because, what's that?
230.
Yeah, like 228, which is, that's not happening.
Yeah.
That's absolutely not happening. So
A regular pitcher wouldn't do that. A pitcher coming over from Japan where they're used to a 6-day rotation is definitely not doing that.
right, so
With injuries the year before.
Yeah. The silver lining, if you want to call it that, is Senga's going to be under contract for the next 3 years, no matter what. He's going to be here for the full length of that 5-year contract. That opt-out, I guess unfortunately for him, is not going to be able to be a thought due to the injury. So, yay, I guess.
Like, I get it, it's age, but it's ridiculous how, like, cheap you guys got him compared to Yamamoto.
Yeah.
Where, and, like, I get it, it's
15
a 5 years of age difference, but that's ridiculous. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah, Senga did come with a lot more injury concern.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this year. I think it was more with his elbow, but shoulder, elbow, very similar.
Elbow's not feeling well, so you overuse shoulder and
right. So it all works together. So just a tough blow for the Mets overall, but you got to keep pushing. You got to keep trucking along. But
now,
yeah,
if the Mets make the playoffs, do you want Senga back? Or like not that. Obviously, you want Senga back. Do you activate Senga if he's at like 90? If he's 95%?
Absolutely. I think if you're in a playoff race, if you're in the playoffs, forget about it. You need him. Like I said, this rotation really doesn't do it for me. Come playoffs time, maybe Severino, finds a little bit of his old self with that heightened intensity, but I don't know. Because right now, Severino, Mania, Quintana, David Peterson, and their new rotation acquisition, which I'll talk about in a bit. None of those guys are like guys. You know what I mean? Go.
You go. No, you go.
I was gonna to tie it up. Like none of those guys you necessarily want. Like elimination game 7. Like you don't really want them on the mound. Like you'll be fine with them, but you don't want them because you know that they'll give you a chance.
My only thing is that I think that people sleep on how serious calf injuries are,
Hmm.
where calf strains, calf tightness, whatever, that leads to Achilles tears. You saw that with
Right.
Aaron Rodgers, where he thought he was, granted football, whatever, different sport, but he thought he was 100% healthy. Or he was like 95% healthy, whatever. It's like game one, or the first game of the season, he's playing. Tears his Achilles, snaps in.
Yeah.
That is the only reason why I would almost like slow play, even if it's 95, because you tear your Achilles, he may not be the same as a pitcher. Because is it
Yeah.
his like kind of push off foot or is it the other foot?
It was his right foot, so it
So
was
that's
his
his
right
push off
leg.
foot.
So yeah.
So
Yes.
it's
Yeah. It's definitely a little tricky. Mendoza even mentioned that as well. That calves can be tricky. But if all signs point to him being healthy, I don't know how you can,
if
you
he's
know.
100%, yeah, but if he's like 90, 95, it's like it's
Yeah.
not an easy decision.
Yeah.
If he's
Yeah. I
not
mean,
100%.
yeah. Call it. You have 2 months of rehab. If the Mets make the playoffs, you have about 2 months until that point. So 8 weeks. We will see. It's definitely going to be another thing to monitor, but you got to keep pushing without Senga. You've gone this far without him. It hate to say it, but you just got to keep going with what you got. But definitely just a quite unfortunate turn of events the past week when it comes to the rotation. But like I mentioned, the Mets did address it at the trade deadline. So of course we'll go through all their trades that they made. They made a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trades, and 1, 2, 3 on trade deadline. Well, the trade deadline day this past Tuesday. So I'm gonna go basically in order. I am gonna include Phil Maton because it was only like about a month ago, if that. But all the prospects that they traded away, I'm basing off of Fangraphs mid-season redo. So I think these were their rankings back in May. So first and foremost, Phil Maton, who we've seen was traded from the Rays to the Mets for a player to be named later or cash. As of right now, that still hasn't been decided. Phil Maton does have an option for next year, so he can be a piece next year in that bullpen. But we've seen him; he's been solid as a Met. And then this past Friday, they made a trade for right-handed pitcher Ryan Stanek for unranked prospect Rylan Thomas. He's an outfielder. He's been in AAA most of the year. From everything I've read, high contact approach, power not so much there. Kind of a fourth outfielder type player. So Ryan Stanek is coming off a so-so first half with the Mariners. He's pitched 39 innings for a 4.38 ERA, 4.03 expected ERA. He's 90th percentile in chase, 87th percentile in whiff percentage, and 70th percentile in K percentage. Just another guy for kind of that back end of the bullpen, kind of middle innings. If if he's right, he could be a big high leverage arm, but he's been a little shaky in his Mets tenure so far. His first appearance against the Braves was not good. 3 runs in an inning, giving up 2 home runs. He pitched against the Twins as well. Another shaky kind of outing. He had a weird play at first base. Maybe that shook him a little bit. But Ryan Stanek, I kind of wanted the Mets to sign him in the offseason, so kind of funny that they traded for him now. But just another guy to kind of, I don't think it raises the ceiling per se, but it definitely raises the floor of that bullpen. Just a high power arm, high strikeout guy that, replaces. I don't even know who he replaced technically, but the bullpen's like been such a turn around just every day. So, but regardless, I like the trade. Didn't really give up too much for him, so good trade. I guess I'll call this the biggest trade that they made. Jesse Winker. Mentioned him last week. They were looking at Michael Conforto. They did talk to the Giants about Michael Conforto. It probably would have been a fun reunion, but Jesse Winker is the better player this year, at least. So, traded for Jesse Winker, sending 27th ranked prospect, right-handed pitcher Tyler Stewart. I was a little surprised by this. Stewart, a lot of, I guess, reliever risk, if you want to call it. A lot of points to kind of swingman type, long relief and or spot starter type guy. But he's been a really solid pitcher. I'm pretty sure he led all of, I forget what league Double A Binghamton is, but that Double A
league, yeah.
league, yeah, I'm pretty sure he led all of the league in ERA last year, and he's having a really solid year this year. But the Mets, they drafted a lot of pitchers this past draft. I think it was about 12 pitchers, if I remember correctly. So you have a lot of pitchers already in the system. You have a lot of guys in AAA, and Mike Vassell, Dom Hamill, Blade Tidwell, and then you have guys, kind of rising the ranks, and then you include the draft picks. They don't have a lot of elite pitching prospects, but they do
13
have
pitchers, by the way.
Okay, 13 pitchers, even more so. Like I said, they don't have a lot of elite pitchers, but they have a lot of arms. So they definitely had a surplus that they could trade from. So Tyler Stewart goes to the Nationals for Jesse Winker, who has a 127 weighted runs created plus on the year with 11 home runs. He has a 138 WRC plus versus right-handed pitching. And then my favorite part about Jesse Winker, he has a 232 weighted runs created plus in high leverage, a 168 with runners in scoring position, a 161 with men on base. So far in his 2 games he's played with the Mets, he's been hitting 5th behind Pete Alonso. I think that's a good spot for him. Gives him a lot of those chances with runners in scoring position, but definitely expect a platoon role with Jesse Winker, being the left-handed bat that he is. It kind of looks like they're going to do a kind of 3-way platoon type thing where if it's a lefty, Jose Iglesias will play second, McNeil will play right. If it's a righty, McNeil will play second, Jesse Winker in right. Then I mentioned with Starling Marte that when he comes back, it's going to be a little interesting playing time-wise, because you figure that Marte plays right field almost every day. Maybe they're a little more cautious with him. Then where does Jesse Winker play? Because do you eat into Marte's playing time? Do you eat into Harrison Bader's playing time? You move Nimmo to center. You put Winker in left. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what they do there. But Justin, I want your opinion on what they should maybe do once Starling Marte returns.
Well, I was on the big, if you could try and trade him train. Because you have and this is not a knock, but you have a clogged DH. JD Martinez is your DH. You think Marte's bad in the field? You think he's bad?
Yeah.
You don't want to see JD Martinez in the field.
Right.
So it's going to be tough. Your starting outfield would probably be Winker, Marte, Nimmo. That's probably what you're just going to have to do. Because you traded for a guy that's a rental. You're not going to not start him. You have to start him. So I don't... And Marte's value is as low as it's going to be. Say you want to try and get out of that contract, trade him in the offseason, he's got to play. So I think you got to start those 3 in the outfield.
Yeah, to your point, after this year, he has 1 more year on that contract. So if you want to trade him in the offseason, he's a rental. That's probably a lot more tantalizing than it might seem right now. So
especially if he gets his value up, too.
Right. So you want him to play to get his value up, to maybe trade him in the offseason, because, say, you want Drew Gilbert to be your starting right fielder come opening day 2025. But Yeah, I think that outfield trio is definitely the way to go for offensive purposes. You're obviously losing Bader and or Tyrone Taylor's defense, but when it comes to offense, which is their strength right now and kind of what you need to maybe power through, these last 2 months, that might be the way to go. But we'll see. We will see. But Jesse Winker, uh, absolutely love the addition. Perfect fit. A Such a character too. Big fan of Jesse Winker as a person. Um, he had a lot of like back and forth with Mets fans earlier in his career. Exactly. So seems like a great guy. I didn't realize how much he knew the existing team already. He knows Pete Alonso already. I think he played travel ball with him or something like that. He played travel ball with JD. He played baseball with Lindor before. He knows a lot of guys in the clubhouse, so I'm sure that also had to do with it. Because, just don't want to disrupt what they've had going on since June, call it. But Jesse Winker looks like a good fit, and hopefully he can bring in some extra pop that, unfortunately, DJ Stewart couldn't, which he did get optioned to AAA in favor of Jesse Winker. Then the next trade they made was to address the rotation. Nothing flashy, nothing huge, but right-handed pitcher Paul Blackburn goes to the Mets. 28th ranked prospect right-handed pitcher Cade Morris, a single A prospect, goes to the Oakland Athletics for the return. Paul Blackburn, nothing fancy. He has a 4.41 ERA in only 9 starts this year. He missed a month, I believe, due to a stress reaction in his foot. So he just came back fairly recently. But again, nothing ceiling rising, but definitely floor rising.
Yeah, I think you guys got an absolute steal with him because I like him a lot more than I like Taylor Rogers, and you guys gave up a tenth of what you gave up to get Blackburn compared to what the Orioles gave for Rogers. So with how the market was, I think that was a great value, a really good trade.
Yeah, I think the market played such a big role into the way the Mets went about this deadline. I mean, because once Scott went down, it's kind of like, all right, at least Senga's coming back. Then Senga goes down, it's like, all right, now we need a starting pitcher. And I was in that boat right afterwards. I think they needed to trade for a starting pitcher. Would have loved Jack Flaherty, but I don't know how far they got into talks with him. Like you mentioned, I know they were interested in Trevor Rogers from the Marlins, who went to the Orioles, but they got a haul for Rogers, who's not having a great year. So I'm completely okay with letting him go. And then I think the Astros also just fucked up everybody with that Yusei Kikuchi trade.
That was crazy.
That's probably one of the worst trades I've ever seen.
Yeah.
For Yusei Kikuchi. But outside of that, it was a lot of nibbling. A lot of talk about Blake Snell, which the Giants did not move for whichever reason. Because, they're going for it, but we're going to trade Jorge Soler and Alex Cobb. But we're going for it. I think that was completely stupid on the Giants. Should have traded Snell, even if it wasn't to the Mets, just from a organization perspective. The Giants, unfortunately, are not as good as you and me hoped.
Especially with his opt-outs, too. Yeah. It's not like there's no guarantee you're going to have him next year. And if you want to... I saw a lot of people saying that they traded Soler because of a salary dump. If you want to dump his salary, you trade him now, because if he opts in, that's another $30 million next year.
Exactly. It did not make any sense. And if Snell continues the success he's had since coming off the IL, he's 100% opting out. So
and he's
it
also
made no sense.
His second half numbers are significantly better than his first half every year of his career. Like, I think the highest ERA he's ever had in the second half was like a 3.2.
Right.
So and everything else is low 2s, high 1s. So I don't get not trading him.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But outside of Blake Snell, there wasn't really a lot to go. There wasn't a lot of premier pitching on the market, I want to call it. Because outside of that, you had maybe Cal Quantrill, the Rockies, he's a back end guy. I forget who else they said they were looking at, but it was Jack Flaherty and then everybody else.
Yeah.
So not a lot to choose from, but Paul Blackburn, just back of the rotation guy, throws anything and everything. He's probably better like consistency wise than Tyler McGill. McGill obviously has upside, but he just can never really get it consistent. So Blackburn will at least give you consistent innings and hopefully keep you in the game. He's also under contract for next year. So with Severino, Jose Quintana, and possibly Sean Manaea if he opts out, all being free agents, the rotation's looking a little thin. So you at least have a back end guy for next year. And then the next trade the Mets made with the Rays for right-handed pitcher Tyler Zuber for unranked prospect Paul Gervais. Tyler Zuber, kind of a kind of early journeyman kind of guy, unless he was with the Rays the entire time. But regardless, he hasn't pitched a lot in the majors. He has about 3 innings this year, not a lot the past year or so. But it's a more so major league ready arm than Gervais, who they gave away. So I don't mind it. A solid trade. I don't really know what to think of it just yet. I just think of it as Zuber was probably more major league ready than Gervais, and that's really all they need right now. So solid. And then the last trade that the Mets made was with the Marlins for right-handed pitcher Huascar Brazoban for number 29th ranked prospect Wilfredo Lara. I believe he is in Single A. Brazoban is not a free agent until 2029, so he has a lot of years of control. He is 34, kind of a late bloomer, but so far this year he has a 2.93 ERA in 30 innings. He has a 2.49 expected ERA and a 2.63 FIP. And if you look at his Savant page, you see a lot of red. Average exit velocity looks like high 90s, chase percentage 90, whiff 90, K percentage, call it 85. He walks a little more guys than I would expect, but when you have high strikeout guys, it also comes with walks. But you can live with the walks as long as they strike out guys. So Brazoban also has the ability to go multiple innings. So good trade. I like it a lot. Obviously, years of control are huge, but the age is a little up there. He's 34 now, so. But good trade overall. The trade deadline, as I expected, was a lot on the margins. There wasn't anything ceiling pushing, but a lot of floor rising. They probably could have done a little more in the rotation, but again, the market was just absolutely insane. The prices these pitchers were going for, I don't think the Mets were willing to part ways with multiple, top 15, top 10 prospects. Because, look, they've been playing really good. They have one of, if not the best record since June. But at the same time, this is way ahead of expectations. This is not where David Stern's expected to be. Sure as hell this is not where the fans expected them to be. So it's a little more of a luxury given where they're at. So it was a good trade element. I will give them a B plus, given the expectations, given what they did. Again, nothing flashy, but a lot of, call it savvy moves. Probably my favorite trade is probably Jesse Winker. I think that's definitely one that's going to help. I know. That's definitely one that's probably going to help the most. But Brazoban can definitely be a more underrated trade. I think he can be really good down the stretch. And then we'll see what Paul Blackburn is. Kind of excited to see what he brings just from a consistency standpoint. Because being, call it the number 5 guy, if he can be even what he is now, a 4.4 ERA guy, that's fine. That's solid. You take that.
Yeah.
But again, this rotation's a little thin when it comes to playoffs. For the last 2 months, they probably can get you there, but come to playoffs, who knows what you're going to get. So, good trade deadline. Solid trade deadline. I would have loved Jack Flaherty, but
I think I
injury
would have too.
history, yeah, prospects, package, who knows what it would have cost. I think the Dodgers sent their like 4th and 15th, something like that,
Yeah.
to the Tigers. So I would have loved a lefty for the bullpen, but I guess they like what they have between Danny and Alex Young and Matt Gage, who they optioned after not using him. But Alex Young, in a very short sample size, has been really good for the Mets. Danny Young has been okay so far. And Jake Diekman has been DFA'd, so he's out. Adrian Hauser as well, so he's out. It's kind of unfortunate timing. They DFA'd Hauser to make room for Senga, and then Senga gets hurt. So now you kind of, I don't know if you kind of wish you had Hauser, because it's kind of like, do you have Hauser or do you have Blackburn? But Blackburn has the extra year of control, so you probably take that. But a very, like I said, cool deadline. Nothing flashy, nothing big,
Solid.
a lot on the margins. Right, solid. You raised the floor of the bullpen. You brought in a left-handed bat that you desperately needed after J.J. Stewart just really didn't give you much. And Phil Maton can be under contract next year. Paul Blackburn under contract. Tyler Zuber's in arbitration. Huascar Brazaban is under arbitration. The only rental, or the 2 rentals, are Jesse Winker and Ryan Stanek. Everyone else can possibly help you next year, which is also just huge. So, like what they did, but to quickly go through the games, like I mentioned earlier, they had a 4-game set with the Braves. They won the first 2 and then lost the next 2. A little disappointing, I'll admit, a tad, just because, you win the first 2, you really wish you could kind
At
of
least
win.
get one more.
Right. So they got absolutely just shoved against Saturday's game. Spencer Schwallenbach, best start of his career against the Mets. Like, I think 7 innings, 11 strikeouts, something like that. Tip your cap there. Sunday's game just never really got anything going. So just a little disappointing, especially since if you win one more game, you come out of that series as wild card 1. And right now, they are out of a wild card spot because the Padres and Diamondbacks don't lose for whatever reason. But they are half a game out, so the wild card standings are going to be insane down the stretch, seeing who's really, if anyone's going to tail off. Because right now, Atlanta has number 1 spot. They are up by a game. San Diego has a second wild card spot. They're up by half a game. Arizona has a third. They're up by, up from the Mets half a game. So the Mets are a game and a half back from the first spot, a game from the second spot, and half a game from the third spot. And then the guys behind the Mets, St. Louis is a game and a half behind third. Pittsburgh, 2.5. San Francisco, 4.5. So you probably expect Pittsburgh and San Francisco to kind of die down a little bit. Kind of like maybe not completely erase themselves from the race, but kind of less of a threat. But these standings are going to change every day. If Atlanta loses and the Mets win, they're like the second spot. If the Mets lose and the Diamondbacks win, they're out of a playoff spot. So it's going to be crazy. It's going to be weird. It's going to be wonky. But the Mets have played really well, obviously, since June. And then the Twins series, they won the first two, lost the last one, but you won the series. The Twins are a really good team. It's always hard to sweep a uh, a good team like the Twins. I'm sure it stings a little more just because you do fall off at that playoff spot, even though you're doing everything right almost. You win the first two, you win the series, you lose one game, and you go from the second spot to out of a playoff spot. So it happens. But Severino just had probably his worst start since maybe his first start of the season. 3 innings, 6 hits, 6 runs. His velocity was noticeably down. That's concerning. Mendoza and Severino himself didn't seem too concerned. It was only 3 innings of work, so maybe you chalk it up to just that small sample size. But his velocity definitely was down throughout the game. But those were the games that happened. And then they start a really weird road trip on Friday with 3 against the Angels in Anaheim. Then they have to go from Anaheim, go to St. Louis to make up a game from, May? Make up a game from May. Go to St. Louis after playing in Anaheim. From St. Louis, go to Colorado for 3 against Colorado. From Colorado, go to Seattle for 3 games against the Mariners. Very wonky. But Angels, Rockies, win the series. You should win the series. Knowing the Mets, they would probably get swept in Colorado and then sweep the Mariners. But a long road trip. But the Mets play better on the road. Somehow. For some reason. So it's going to be fun watch. Late night West Coast games. Screaming internally at my TV at 1 a.m. But yeah, that's really all I got. Trade deadline done and over. Marginal moves, solid moves. Still in that playoff race. It's gonna be changing every day. Very fluid, but we'll see what happens. The Mets just gotta keep taking care of business. Just win series, control what you can control, and the rest will fall in place. So,
Yeah.
Justin, if you have anything else to add.
Win the series against the Angels and the Rockies, take care of business, and go you can in Seattle.
Exactly. So, without further ado, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for and/or watching. Remember to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow the podcast on Spotify. Let us know what you think about the Yankees and Mets trade deadline. And yeah, so thank you guys again. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.